it's an extraordinary burden of proof, and he actually put the bar even higher than most scientists would. But,
Right.
do I think we're ever going to get the answer that science is going to embrace this? I think, scientists, individual ones, are quite willing to do so. Science as a whole, it will take an awful lot of time, and the burden of proof will be put extremely high. And to some extent, there's nothing wrong with that. I just wish that the atmosphere in which the debate is held could be a bit more nice,
Fair?
rather
Yeah.
fair. all of those positive words.
Exactly. Philip, this went by so many, and I'm not even a third way done with the questions, but the good news is that another producer here, Jamie Havokin, is going to have you on his show, I believe, on December 5th. And if that's wrong, please let me know in chat right away or something. But and hopefully, because your book is, from what I can see already, is just amazing. And I know that your research actually uncovers an extraterrestrial connection in the form of archaeological evidence right up to the 2012 phenomenon. You talk about, I love that your research isn't just limited to antiquity. It also lists research that has occurred recently. You show all sorts of things. And I just kind of brushed through it today and started reading. So I'm very anxious. I'm very thrilled that you're going to come back on to Inception Radio Network with Jamie. And you're going to have an awesome time with him. He's amazing. And we've come to that time, everybody. I know we have a caller on the line. Is the caller still there?
Yep.
Hi, caller. Could you let us know your name and where you're from?
Hello, Chase. This is Michael.
He's my partner in all things unseen. Hi, Michael. Did you have a
How are you?
I'm great.
This is really Philip, it's a great pleasure to be able to talk with you. And you actually brought my question right into focus just in the last few minutes. It's an interesting observation, but I saw a thing on Tesla. And I don't know what your opinion is, but you actually described what that man's life was. It was hell on top of having the knowledge and the understanding of things that were so far in advance of the time that nobody could actually grasp it. Even the great inventors and Edison and all that stuff and what they did to Tesla. And actually, Tesla invented just about everything that we have right now today, but was given very little credit for it. And the one thing that I wanted to ask, first of all, your opinion on the man, because I know at one point he, with the radio telescope that he invented, stated publicly that he'd actually communicated with the Martians on Mars. And boy, that set back his funding for about 10 years. But conceivable enough because he actually invented the system that could actually potentially do that. And that's what really shook up a few people down the road a lot of years. But I know that Marconi stole a lot of his patents to invent the radio system. I know that the patent system in 1943 revoked all those from Marconi and gave credit to Tesla, but he was dead by then. But the big thing is, what I'm curious about is the death ray. I mean, he really pushed the death ray thing, and he stated that he could shoot the material or the electricity or whatever he was shooting out, the beam, and he could knock down planes thousands of miles away. It was ironic because he was murdered, but when the FBI did the investigation on his death, they found that the death ray was under wraps and being tested at Wright-Patterson in 1943 by the government. So, this man had to have been one of the most incredible people in the world, but do you think he was really inspired by something not of this world? because he was so far advanced in what he was doing and he was successful at it?
Is that your question?
That's my question.
Just
Well, I have a great admiration for Tesla. Anything to do with free energy, my brain is not geared towards physics, so I'm absolutely interested and fascinated by Tesla and everything he did. I think what he was a person who understood. And I think this is not just him, but various people of his generation. They had this basic understanding of working with things. It's like, like we have thousands, if not millions, of computer programmers these days, but ask them how a computer works really at a grassroots level, and they'll probably kind of are completely unable to tell you. I'm also fascinated by stories which I've actually never been able to track down. So it's like a second-hand story, but that the people all involved with this, with the early days of the exploration of electricity, actually believed that electricity was far more, that it also had an intelligence, and that we were only really using a part of this force, and the part which we were able to control and play with, and that this was something which was clearly of use to everybody, and that is why they were beginning to do these applications. But yes, I'm as you say, like he claimed to have made contact with the Martians, but the big question I think about Tesla is, where did he get his information from? And
exactly.
He was a very private man, and I have no I have no scoop or no insights. I have dear friends who I visited his museum in Serbia. I visited some of the sites connected with him, but really nobody knows. He was just a quiet man, and but he fits a perspective. I would say that, and in my book I go into a bit of detail, but kind of like there are other examples of people like him. Coral Castle, Edward Leeds Callan comes to mind, primarily of people who understood a piece of our past, which was given to them in a gigantic insight, and then the question is, who was responsible for this this insight? And on a number of occasions, you will find that it is indeed a non-human intelligence who is helping them.
Wow. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate.
Thank you for calling, Michael.
You betcha. Thank you, Jason.
And we have a question coming in from chat from Richard. And the first question that he asks is, I believe that when the Native Americans of New England saw the European sailing ships, they described them as huge birds. Wouldn't somebody hearing this say that they might claim that gods came from the sky on birds?
The story that they identify them as giant birds is it's not completely substantiated. There are indeed accounts that this was the case. There are other accounts that it wasn't the case. There's definitely something to be said that sometimes what we don't know gets changed into other things. In my book, I go into a section on the cargo cults, which basically was that when the thousands of American troops landed in the South Pacific during World War II, that the natives began to create a religion based on contact with these things, with these, what were American soldiers, and that when they left, they basically began to build replicas of runways and aircrafts in the hope that it would entice the gods to return. The interesting aspect, I think, there is that something physical and extraordinary happened, and that it left a memory with these people, and that they spoke about it. And I think that is an interesting aspect, that contact with extraordinary things do leave an account and can create religions. as to how specific the details are, whether this is a pro or a con. I think you really need to be, how should I put this, very specific and go into an extraordinary amount of detail, whether you can make statements as to saying that they were mistaken. It's always very easy to find one example of one guy who's mistaken, but if there were 100 people looking at them, you have 99 people who might have seen what was really happening.
Right. Another question came in: if the gods are real, if they are extraterrestrial beings, what does that mean for mankind today, and what effect do you think it will have on our modern civilization?
Judging from the popularity of Ancient Aliens, I would say we're pretty okay.
Yeah.
I don't see people crying in the streets. I don't see news reports which all of a sudden says that people are seeking psychiatric help because there's a TV show which suggests that we were not alone.
No mass suicides,
nope.
From panic and depression.
No, I mean, science fiction, let's face it, every science fiction story has some alien in there, whether he is evil or good. So I think we're fine. I think, if anything, the general population is far better in dealing with this question than the scientific establishment. Even the Vatican is better dealing with this question than the scientific establishment, because when the Vatican gets asked about ET, they're basically saying, yeah, we're fine with that. Yeah, it's possible that there are other extraterrestrial beings, and so I think we're going to be just fine.
I agree. I think we're more than ready. I think we can handle it well. I do know that even there are some religions that absolutely, accept this. And, I bring this up quite a bit because I do believe in the ancient alien theory, and I absolutely do. But, the Mormons also, talk about, and Ancient Aliens actually featured, Joseph Smith, that says, I saw a beam of light with two personages, and, goes on to describe an angel Moroni, and Moroni claims to be, from another planet. But even Mormonism back in the early 1800s was one of the first religions to actually name a planet. And they name Kolob, which is the planet closest to where God lives. And they have those hieroglyphics in the Book of Moses. And, you kind of have to look at it in the sense of, come on, an angel tells you where there's gold plates, you dig them up, and you get an instrument to interpret them, and, nobody can find anything wrong with that interpretation as of today, whether you believe it's part of the Bible or whatever. But, it's a solid work that has claimed to come from gold plates and a mystical, extraterrestrial seer stone. So I think that there's a lot of the world's population that would almost find this as the answer they've been looking for. I mean, do you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one of those people who basically says that you should exchange God with a big G for gods with a small g.
Right.
If anything, I'm actually quite convinced that one of the things which these creatures were telling us was that the soul did exist after death, that there was an afterlife, that there are such things as spiritual things, that quantum physics is basically another aspect of this thing, which basically says thought is extremely important. But I also think that they said that all of this thing is kind of like God. Michael Talbot wrote a book called The Holographic Universe, and Michael Talbot unfortunately died several years ago now, shortly after he wrote the book. But Michael Talbot was a person who basically said that he wrote this book called The Holographic Universe because he had contact with non-human intelligences in scenarios similar to what other people would call UFO abductions, but which he didn't label as such because he felt that they were erroneous, because these entities which came to him gave him all of this extraordinary information rather than abuse him. Basically, when these creatures spoke to him and said, there is far more to our reality than you can imagine. And that is basically, the introduction to the big G. And so I think that the gods with the small g, who made contact with our ancestors in the past, also spoke about how and the reason why we're here, or what we're doing here, and how life on Earth is, and all of these dimensions of the spirit. That was part of their education. The ancient Egyptians were obsessed with the soul. They had a science
and moving on
of the soul. So it's so clear that we have to distinguish between God with a big G and the gods with a small g.
Right. Philip, we have time for one more question, and I really would like maybe some insider information, I guess. You're not only a researcher, you actually know the people that are involved in real truth seeking and that are deeply embedded in this topic. Which people in the field and their conclusions that they have reached impress you the most?
There are several, and they come from a variety of corners. In the field of Egyptology, I would say a person called Jeremy Nadler has written a book called The Shamanic Wisdom in the Pyramid Text, or a title to that effect. He's written a few other books. Jeremy is an extraordinarily private person. I have a radio show of my own. I organize conferences, and I have tried to get him to these, and he basically refuses to show his face. He writes, and that's all he does. But he writes, and his books are massive. They change. When you read Shamanic Wisdom in the Pyramid Text, it'll change your perspective on what you think the pyramids were. Jeremy Narby, another Jeremy, his book, The Cosmic Serpent, provides insights into how shamanic cults in the Amazon really have extraordinary knowledge, extraordinary technology in brewing, in chemistry, in pharmaceutics, in using the rainforest into making them into pharmaceuticals, which are better and better in the sense of more powerful, but also better for humans when they use them, less toxic than what big pharmaceutical companies make. In the UFO field, I have an awful lot of respect for the likes of Jacques Vallée. John Mack, when he was alive, was I had some very fun moments with him, talking to him. In the ancient astronaut field, I keep saying that Giorgio really should write a book. But in the meantime, when he's not writing a book, his magazine, Legendary Times, is of extraordinary insight into keeping up with what is happening in the ancient astronaut field.
I've been a subscriber of that for quite a while. It is extraordinary information.
Yes, and then obviously Erich's books, because they are so accessible, they are questioning, they are expanding, they will expand your mind. I was a great fan of Terence McKenna. His insights into contact with non-human intelligences and things like Food of the Gods, Time Wave Zero. Some of his other books are really worthwhile books to ponder and spend time with. But there is so much material out there. I quite often think that you always need to look and kind of like dig deep and see where some of the authors today find their inspiration from, and that I think is kind of like those people I have a tremendous respect for. Unfortunately, so many of them have passed on, which is a shame. And there is something to be said, I think, that the greatest minds really go for seclusion or really don't live long to tell the story. Michael Talbot in the Holographic Universe is another one. Amit Goswami, the self something universe is another. The self-reflective or whatever it's called universe is another great writer. His insights into how quantum physics and the science of the soul as practiced by ancient civilizations, how they basically tell the same story, is another. The Self-Aware Universe is the title of his book. It's a must-read. If there's one book probably in the world which anybody should read, it's probably that one.
Absolutely. Philip, your book, The Ancient Alien Question, that's out. Is that November 15th?
It is indeed out on November the 15th.
It is available on pre-order on Amazon. It's, like I said, I just got my copy today, everybody, and, just thumbing through it for the little bit of time I had. I'm so excited. But, Philip, I heard you mention that you're already on a follow-up book to The Ancient Alien Question.
This week is me writing the synopsis, a chapter breakdown and a sample chapter to the sequel to The Ancient Alien Question, yes. And then later in the week, I'm actually also doing the DVD recordings, because The Ancient Alien Question will have a DVD component to it, whereby, it's a more relaxed kind of talkative guide to the Ancient Alien topic.
Other than the, what is this, your third interview today alone?
Uh-huh.
And I sincerely have said this before, but sincerely have to say thank you so much for accepting the invitation to come on Epic Voyages. Number one on my list of dream guests, and oh my gosh, I hope that's not a check on the bucket list. I'm too young for a bucket list. I don't want a bucket list. But it was definitely a thrill to have you on here. I was very, very excited. A little nervous at first, but, you're amazing. So I forgot to be in 5 minutes. But honestly, Philip, what's next? Other than the books, I know there's still Ancient Aliens has stopped filming, correct?
Ancient Aliens, we have... it's running to the end of its third season. There is talk of a fourth, and if that happens, there are 12 more hours, likely 12 more hours of Ancient Aliens to come. And I think if the production company Prometheus is doing it right now, they just need to take a big sleep after almost a year of doing something which is extraordinary. Producing 16 episodes week in, week out is truly something which documentary wise nobody is done on television in recent times that I can think of. So
I've just read that. I read that comment about how extraordinary what this production company has actually done, and also they're analyzing the success of Ancient Aliens. So it's going to be the new shot list and the new format of successful television for the next 5 years, because you know how everybody jumps on that. But there's got to be a fourth season. Can you imagine them stopping now? The whole world would be, talk about riots.
Maybe Occupy Wall Street will focus its attention on Prometheus if they stop.
Occupy Hollywood.
But no, I'm pretty confident that there is going to be a fourth season. Afterwards, I think it is going to stop, because by that moment in time, there will have been 50 hours of Ancient Aliens on primetime television. And, I think basically my hair and Giorgio's hair needs to have a rest afterwards.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, with all the amazing work you both have contributed into this field, and have educated even the new people coming in, and everybody references you guys. They really do. I do. Everyone does. And to be so successful, and now in such a field of expertise that you're quoted and referenced, and it's kind of crazy that you and Giorgio are kind of known for the good-looking guys, one with the bad hair and one with the good hair. I mean, who knew, right?
Well, I think it's Michio Kaku has quite an interesting hairstyle as well. So
Yes, he does.
So I guess it's native to the industry, maybe we are just too close to a Tesla coil and our hair just behaves in a funny way. But all joking aside, I think there is this aspect that we live in a civilization where unfortunately the message is only heard if somehow the messenger is interesting as well, and to some extent that's a sad fact of reality, but it's also a statement of reality.
Philip, you are not joking. I literally just had a little exposure with that where I'm talking to some people and trying to get a project done. And one of the things that they needed was my bio and more about me than my project. And I was so stunned by that, because what I realized is if I'm not fun to talk about or if I'm not interesting enough, they kind of didn't care so much about what I had to present. It's a whole package. So we'll see what comes of that. But you're absolutely right. So we are so thankful that, you give your time, and also that more people get to hear about, Erich's book, Odyssey of the Gods. I know that he's also doing interviews, that you're partnered with him, because you have a big role in the book as editor. But thank you so much. It's been such an honor, and I cannot thank you enough. Our listeners, thank you. They're applauding in the chat room. They're love the show. And just thank you so much, Philip.
Thank you for having me on.
Awesome. You guys, this has been another week at Epic Voyages, and we were with Philip Coppens, and we hope you join us next week as we have another guest host from the Epic leadership staff and another great guest. And we bid you guys a great week. Don't forget to check out all the shows on Inception Radio Network. It is the world's largest UFO paranormal encrypted network, radio network in the world. This is where you find it, guys. It's all here. Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Please join us again next Monday evening for Extraordinary Phenomena Investigations Council's Epic Voyages. I'm Roger Peacock for Epic. Until next time.